Judging by the title of this video, you would think this was some kind of epic Roman satire, but it is indeed true. We have another massive leak, and this is even bigger than our previous leak, which was pretty big because it leaked the commanders and all of their individual abilities to the finest detail, which were all correct, mind you, on release. But this is a very, very big leak because it details all of the audio voice files from Sean Bean himself, the mad lad who dies in every single cinematic Civ trailer. And we have the deets, and I want to break down every audio quote. I will be playing the individual Sean Bean audio files so you can hear the quotes in all of their glory. Now, without further ado, I'm going to be going in chronological order. Of course, this does not include the personas because they use the same base files that the other civs use. For example, if America is leading with Rough Rider Teddy or Base Teddy, they are going to be using the same voice file. So unfortunately, there are no insights for that, but I imagine that would be upping the budget for Sean Bean by a considerable amount if they included all the different personas. So I will say that in terms of getting them correct, the commentary that Sean Bean gives usually is a pretty good detail or foreshadowing of what the actual leader has. For example, Ambiorix and his arm of Gaul is quite similar. It focuses on his ability to combat strength and I believe the flanking bonus. So that ties in well. I think Gorgo's also is quite similar with her culture bonus and being militarily focused, but it gives more of an outline of the different archetypes for these leaders. So let's talk about the first leader that we will be reviewing. That will be Elizabeth I, and I want to play her audio file real quickly before we actually get into the heart of the video.
Elizabeth Regina, Virgin Queen of England and Monarch of the Seas, you command the wooden wall that defends England from those who would seize it. Guard yourself against intrigues at home and abroad, and let your captains set sail at your command. Bow your head to no one, and Britannia shall rule the waves.
It's interesting because she actually has a mention of the wooden wall, which was a famous naval formation or combat technique that England used. And I'm going to guess that Elizabeth is going to be very militarily focused, which is not too unusual from Victoria. So with that in mind, I think Victoria's persona is going to be more production focused because it seems to be a steam aged based persona. So perhaps they're going to let Elizabeth I take more of a militaristic approach that kind of capitalizes on England's bonuses to settling on other continents and maintaining that loyalty. So perhaps she gets a unique ship. Who knows? We haven't seen any unique leader, monuments, buildings, or units for that matter, but it is entirely possible. And I would love to see some kind of inclusion for that to make her playstyle more diverse instead of just flat out combat bonuses. In Civ 5, England is a rather interesting case because it actually has a +2 movement speed, and while in the older games, leader abilities and the country abilities were tied into one single ability, it was not too detailed. That +2 movement and then an additional spy capacity is all there seems to be for England, so kind of underwhelming, but something to take a note of, I think, is the Ship of the Line. Perhaps she could have that as a unique unit. I'm not going to cross my fingers, but I think she will have some unique naval exploration bonuses similar to what Portugal has with Sight, or perhaps something even more nuanced than that.
King Ludwig, they call you mad, but your madness is the madness of dreams, of poetry and fairy stories. You imagine that the world could be otherwise, that we could build an enchanted kingdom where all seemed tedious and mundane. O Swan King, the world has need of your castles and knights, your dragon-haunted mountains and mystical grottos. Come again and give us new dreams.
Next up is a complete banger because it is just so poetic, and I think it really reflects into his different abilities. They say, Ludwig, they call you mad, but your madness is the madness of dreams, of poetry, and fairy stories. You could imagine that the world could be otherwise, that we could build an enchanted kingdom where all seem tedious and mundane. That is a pretty badass opener. I think it has to be one of my favorite openers. The world has need of your castles and knights, your dragon-haunted mountains and mystical grottos. Sean Bean is spitting some pretty intense bars here, I think, and I really love where they're going with this direction for the leader. It is incredibly vague, though. One of the vaguest leader descriptions. I think it will definitely have something to do with great works of writing, with great people generation. Perhaps he has a penalty to loyalties because he is mad. I'm not too sure. He is a completely new leader. We have not seen him before, but it seems like despite his reputation, he is going to have some incredibly good bonuses to different works of writing, I think, because there's not too many leaders, in my opinion, that specifically focus on great writers or a tourism-based writing victory aside from like Christina with her Queen's Bibliotheca. So we'll see where she goes with this. I think Ludwig is one of my most hyped leaders because he is going to be spinning Germany a different tale, if you will, to be poetic. I just love to see a different take on Germany's otherwise very industrialized and militaristic focus for something a bit more whimsical, fantastical, and lofty castles, the enchanted forests, and the wherewithal for all of that. As a side note, he did help found the wonder that we've seen in Civ 5, Neuschwanstein, so he could even get a unique wonder. It's really the sky's the limit in this case with the different abilities that Ludwig could have. He founded castles, he inspired theater plays, he did all of the above in terms of great works and everything like that. So he could really have anything, I think, but I really want to see how they go about with Ludwig, and they could really disappoint us, I feel, in any way, just because there are such high hopes, I think, for this leader in terms of what he could do.
Ramesses, Pharaoh of the Black Land and the Red, beloved like Horus, your imperious face gazes out across the desert in countless stone images. Others claim to be God's messenger, but you claim to be the Son incarnate. From temples built from the living rock of Egypt, your command calls your people to you. Rule now, and may none stand against the rising flood.
Now, I had been hoping for a more river or natural disaster focused Ramses with an emphasis on protecting Egypt against floods and getting production bonuses for them. We could see that. His description is definitely less eccentric, but there is an unusual element, I will say, that I didn't think Ramses would be having. It makes sense for Egypt, but there is indeed a bit of religious flair. It talks a lot about countless stone images, claiming to be God's messenger and the Son incarnate, and then finally perhaps a little bit of tease for a natural disaster-related ability. I am crossing my fingers. From temples built from the living rock of Egypt, your command calls your people to you. Rule now, and may none stand against the rising flood. So, who knows? Maybe they could have just been more on the nose and said against the gathering storm. Wink, wink. But I honestly don't know. I think it is more up to estimation or speculation, really. He had in Civ 5 a very wonder-focused strategy where he received a flat-out buff to building wonders. I don't think it'll be that straightforward. As we've seen, the great commanders are a lot more complicated and sophisticated. Hopefully that trend continues as we continue to go down the line. Who knows, but it seems like there's a religious flair. Perhaps he gets faith from wonders or something like that, but it is entirely, again, up in the air. But he is not going to be a very straightforward leader, I think.
Sejong de Wong, Sejong the Great, ruler of Joseon. From your pen, proclamations flow that shape the course of history. A new society, a new way of being is yours to direct. Let your people live harmoniously by your example, and let your wisdom and knowledge guide Korea towards its destiny.
I think Sejong's description surprised a lot of people because it doesn't talk a lot about science. It talks a lot about writing. And Sejong, for those of you who aren't too familiar with Korea's history, he invented Hangul, the standard Korean writing system that is still in use today. And while there is a mention briefly of wisdom and knowledge, I think there could be something related to kind of what Sondok has with her bonuses to culture and science, but a bit more sophisticated. He is frequently associated with the Jade Hall, and in Civ 5, that was quite literally the name of the ability for Korea. Now, I did have something different in mind for Sejong. I think the Jade Hall could be an amazing government building, or maybe even a scientific campus building. It seems a bit more government focused, as that was really the throne room most of the time for Sejong. Perhaps it could have great works of writing and then provide great people points for scientists and great writers. Who knows? But I do think that maybe he'll have bonuses towards loyalty and he could scale off of that. Perhaps he grants extra amenities through building government buildings, something similar to that. Again, it's kind of hard to gauge based off of Sejong, but I do have the feeling that he will be culture focused and science focused. Perhaps there will be a bit more of an equilibrium or a balance for Sejong with this incarnate or this version of him.
Empress Theodora, you come from nothing to rule the remnants of Rome. With your wit and beauty, you captivated the people of Constantinople and placed your hand upon the great wheel of power. In a time of strife and division, let all be guided by your counsel, and set your shining seal upon the land.
Theodora was a very popular, and I mean very popular, Civ 5 leader, not because of her abilities or her gameplay. I think there was something else involved if you want to let your imagination run wild there. Yet there's a really unique opportunity I think Civ 5 has here because Byzantium was one of the weakest civs by far in Civ 5, and they could really turn that around, I think, with Civ 6. Bazil is pretty impressive from the offset. He did something interesting where a lot of people didn't think he would go, and he made Byzantium into a domination civ, which is not one of my favorite approaches or playstyles, but I do commend the devs for making a more interesting and, I think, dynamic Byzantium that is more focused on outwardly expanding. It's interesting because Byzantium or Eastern Rome, depending on how fanatic of a fan you are, has had issues, I think, historically with loyalty and maintaining core provinces as the Turks expanded their dominion from west to east and east to west. But one common trend and weakness, I think, of Byzantium has been loyalty. So perhaps she'll turn that around. She could even get a unique advisor. Maybe she gets Justinian, which is quite a take on, I guess, Theodora originally being an advisor to Justinian. But we could see really anything, I think, with this ability. But I do think she'll have a focus on loyalty and something like maintaining already existing cities, which could be a bit of a boring bonus, but I don't know what else she could have. In Civ 5, there was a huge focus on religion, and it kind of put Byzantium as a civ down as a whole, because there wasn't really a huge focus or, I guess, vision for the civ in general, because there was religion, and then there was the Droman, and that was kind of underwhelming in of itself. While still being a good naval unit, it was not exactly spectacular, because naval combat in Civ 5 wasn't great, I don't think, to a big extent. And it's not great in Civ 6 either, so we'll see really where the devs go with this, but I have high hopes for Theodora. Maybe she'll be a bit more of an inward-looking leader. She will try to maintain loyalty with different governors. Perhaps she has bonuses relating to them and promotions. Maybe she gains them twice as fast or several new promotions on different techs. Who knows? But we'll see really where she goes with that, and I think she'll be one of the more interesting leaders.
From humble beginnings to the center of the world you rose, Wu Zetian, Empress of China. Do not let the machinations of your court halt you, for you outwit them all. Whether by the painter's brush, your skill with words, or the poisoned blade, you will rise above your foes and cause the world to bow to you. Out of love or fear, there is little difference.
We are on to our last three voice files, and Wu Zetian kind of catches my eye. I think she has some similar things related to Theodora. She was a female Civ 5 leader, and she kind of had an upset because most of the Chinese leaders in the past were male. And not only has China been a very, I guess, patriarchal society, if you want to describe it that way, but Wu Zetian being a unique female emperor or empress, controlling things from behind the scenes, seems to be more interesting and, I guess, in line with the leader choices and picks that Civ 6 has made in comparison to Civ 5. I think one trend that she'll have that is similar to Theodora, perhaps, is a focus on spies and governors. They talk a lot about poison, espionage, and rising above with the blade. Who knows? But I do think spies will be very common. Spies have been kind of underwhelming in Civ 6, aside from the spamming partisan meme. So she could make a lot of use, I think, out of the spies and making sure to instill fear, perhaps keeping cities permanently loyal that she's recently conquered. She could even get bonuses, perhaps, for establishing spies in new cities for the first time for China's Eureka and Civic bonus with the dynastic cycle. Maybe that could be something she could pursue, or she gets a bonus towards sealing techs from different civs. She could even get spies earlier. She might have some competition with Catherine and her castle spies, but maybe she could be a new take on spies that you wouldn't think would be coming from China, but it would mesh quite well, I think, with their dynastic cycles ability if she manages to get maybe bonus spy production and combo that well with stealing things like Great Works, which could synergize, I think, with the Great Wall and that culture and gold output. So really, there's a lot of things that Wu Zetian could do, but I'm not too sure on the specifics of what they'll choose because there is a lot that she could point her blades to if you want to be a bit punny. One thing is for sure, though, I definitely don't think they'll be keeping the Art of War bonus where she has more great general points. It sounds way too much like she'll be focused on inward espionage. So one thing that I am completely sure on is that they will be getting rid or axing that Art of War ability.
The world awaits, great Yongglo Emperor of Ming China. Stretch out your hand and grasp its riches and its knowledge. Place your nation at the center of all things, and let all come to you in supplication. Let none speak ill of you. histories can be rewritten.
There is a new Chinese emperor coming to the block, and his name is Zetian. He has bonuses that are pretty vague, which is funny coming from Zetian, who was focused all on espionage and being very subtle. But I just do not know what he could have. I think maybe there could be engineering points, great person points. It is really, I guess, up to you guys to figure that out. I just do not have a clue on that. There could be something focused around maybe commercial hubs and campuses, but it is very, very broad. He could even have a conquest victory, but it doesn't really point anything to us to narrow that down, kind of like with the Swan King, Ludwig II, and Ramses. I'm just not sure where they are going with this angle. So if you guys in the comments have any idea, please let me know. But he also had a lot of different diplomatic envoys and conquests to kind of balance things out. So again, very broad leader with a big resume. So we could see anything from this. And I'm honestly very confused in terms of where they're going to take this direction with him. But who knows? Maybe he'll function like Suleiman, where when he's at war and when he's off war, similarly to Suleiman's Golden Age and Dark Age abilities and those kind of flipping depending on what he's in, he could have different bonuses. So anything is really, I guess, up to the Civ devs, but I'm a bit unsure, really, of where they could take his abilities.
Sundiata Keita, Lion of Mali, your griots sing your praises. You rose from humble beginnings to fulfill the prophecy of your people. You were a hunter and a magician. Now the time has come to be a king. Bring Mali from its humble beginnings to the empire it is destined to be.
The last leader we're going to be covering today is Sundiata, and he is going to be an alternative leader to Mali. They are one of the last civs I thought that would be getting an alternative leader, but it is interesting because there's going to be a conquest focus now, I think, at least with Sundiata. They talk about, again, similarly to Zetian, rising from humble beginnings and fulfilling a prophecy. I think there could be religious bonuses there. They talk about him being a magician and also a hunter. But one thing is certain, there is going to be conquest bonuses. I don't think there's going to be anything outside of that for Mali. That gold is going to be useful for helping him fund conquest victories. So again, not too much to speculate on with Sundiata. It seems very clear-cut and straightforward. And I, for one, am not going to be the most excited to play him. I think he's my least hyped leader so far, which is why I'm talking about him last, because you guys would hate me if I led with a very vague opener like that. So again, not too hyped for him, but I think it's very clear he'll be religious and domination focused to jive with Mali's already good religious leader abilities. So that could be interesting, but again, not exactly on the top of my list for most anticipated leaders so far. That's going to be it for this video today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys. And if you want to see any other Civ 6 new leader pass coverages, I have them on the channel. So that'll be up and available for you guys to check out. But thank you again, guys, so much for watching. Love you guys and hope to see you guys later. All right. Peace.